G'day guys, Sammy X2 here. Today we're going to be going over some Rugby 24 video game news. So as we know, Big Ant Studios are developing this game. They are taking over from Eco Software, who have developed Rugby 22 and Rugby 20 and so on. Big Ant Studios have made a few other games, including Rugby League Live 4, some tennis games, and they've also recently announced AFL 23 and Cricket 24. Now, I've been keeping a bit of a close eye on the announcements surrounding AFL 23 and Cricket 24, as a few of the features that are being advertised in these games may be implemented into the new Rugby 24 game we get later this year. Now, both AFL 23 and Cricket 24 have announced and are advertising a pro team mode, which is similar to FIFA's Ultimate Team. And AFL 23, I'll show some screenshots on screen, have also teased the inclusion of legends into this mode, which essentially means they've been getting face scans and they've been getting old legends from the AFL game into their Ultimate Team mode. Now, if this get brought into the Rugby 24 game, it would be huge. Imagine the likes of Jonah Lomu and Johnny Wilkinson in your team. That'd be something pretty amazing, and I don't think that's been done in any rugby game before. So fingers crossed they do that for Rugby 24. That'd be a pretty big feature. Now, of all the upcoming Big Ant Studios games, licensing seems to be a big focus for them. We've seen that with Rugby 24. They're claiming 130 playable national teams. Whether that's true or not, or there's a bit of confusion around the wording of that, we're not sure. We're just going to have to find out and just wait till they announce it properly. But if there is 130 playable national teams, this will be by far the biggest rugby game we've seen so far. So along with that 130 national teams, the Rugby 24 is actually an official product of the Rugby World Cup. So they have the Rugby World Cup licensed. That's in France later this year. Now, another topic for licensing is Cricket 24 and AFL 23 have both advertised a large number of licensed stadiums within their game. Now, Rugby 20 and Rugby 22 didn't have licensed stadiums, and it's not a major issue, but having a licensed stadium definitely adds to the atmosphere of the gameplay experience, especially when you can recognize, the iconic rugby stadiums you're playing in, like Eden Park or Twickenham Stadium, like those big ones like that. Like it's not a major issue, and if there isn't licensed stadiums, it won't be necessarily a bad thing, but it definitely adds to the experience. So hopefully they implement that into the Rugby 24 like they do have in Cricket 24 and AFL 23. Now, back to the topic of club licensing and team licensing. An American rugby journalist has also tweeted that he has on good authority that Major League Rugby has been holding discussions with Big Ant Studios about their inclusion in the game. Now, Major League Rugby isn't necessarily a huge rugby competition, but it just adds some depth and, more playability to the game, having another competition like that. So if they are included, that would be a major step, and it definitely appeals to the American audience as well, which is a pretty key audience in rugby at the moment. Another major topic is the inclusion of the Premiership Rugby, English Premiership, and Super Rugby. Now, the current license holders, which is the Rugby Challenge series, had to pull their game from the Steam store, the PlayStation store, the Xbox store, as their licenses ran out. Now, the CEO of Big Ant Studios recently also tweeted that there is a lot to say about team inclusion, so he could be possibly hinting that there are more licensing announcements to come. Now, if they were to get the English Premiership and Super Rugby licenses now that they're up for grabs, that would mean we'd have Super Rugby, English Premiership, and we've already had the URC Top 14 and Pro D2 announced. And then if we also get Major League Rugby, that's pretty much every major rugby competition, bar a few, missing Japan Rugby League 1, or the old top league, but having those competitions is definitely the most numbers we've had in a long time for licensed competitions. So fingers crossed that happens, and it would definitely be the biggest rugby game in that regard in recent times. However, even if they don't get all the licensed teams, we shouldn't worry. Big Ant Studios are known for their customization, and their games usually feature a fan hub place, which usually allows for player creation, stadium creation, and custom team creation, and you can also edit kits in there, I believe. In their previous games, they've called it the Academy, and it allows for players to upload and download player-made teams, players, and so on. We should fully expect this to be in Rugby 24, as the CEO has kind of hinted at it as well. So this is like amazing. That's going to be an amazing thing to have. You know, Rugby 22 didn't have a few of the big leagues, and it was really let down by that. And not having a team, like a kind of community fan hub, really let it down. So fingers crossed, and we should fully expect this, honestly. Now that about sums it up, really. So far, we know we have a licensed Rugby World Cup. Top 14 URC and Pro T2 are confirmed, and they've self-claimed 130 playable nations, which is massive if true. We know that MLR, Major League Rugby, is in talks with Big Ants about their inclusion, and that Super Rugby and the English Premiership licenses are up for grabs, so hopefully they grab those. But even if we don't get those last three licenses, there will be that fan hub and academy that I just mentioned that will be able to create and download them from. It's looking very likely that we'll have an ultimate team mode, possibly with the inclusion of legends, as we've seen in the AFL 23 game. And now I'd just like to hear anyone's comments. What would you guys like to see in Rugby 24? Honestly, from my point of view, this seems like the most promising rugby game we've had in a long while. I'm personally hoping that we get to pick up those MLR, Super Rugby, and Premiership licenses, as it would make a great impact on the Ultimate Team game mode, having those extra players, extra teams available for us. I also hope that the new game has improved graphics. Rugby 22 didn't have the best graphics, and the UI was pretty shocking, to be completely honest. I'm going to throw up a few screenshots now from what they've released from AFL 23 compared to Rugby 22, and it looks like a pretty great improvement. So fingers crossed on this new game engine that we also get some graphics like this. And anyway, guys, have a good one. Let me know what you want to see in the comments. See you later.